Why did you become a Zionist? And also, do one thing about your position as a Zionist that I don't know is that do you believe that there's the place where Jews can go to flee persecution should specifically be the land in between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea? Or from your position, could it be anywhere in the world?
Okay, wow. This your question is like a entire stream. Like I need like so should we just like we could forget the entire live chat because that will take an hour. No, I'm kidding. I'll give you the short answers. And by the way, your question was also the first question of today. I'll give you the short answers. If people want, I could do an entire live stream on this, right? So why are you a Zionist? I went to Israel. My understanding of Zionism changed after talking to a lot of self-proclaimed Zionists, and I realized that the definition of Zionism is a bit more flexible than I anticipated, right? And based on some of the definition of Zionism, I realized that I am a Zionist, and so given that based on those definitions of Zionism, I'm a Zionist, I decided to identify as a Zionist, right? And I realized that as long as I consider the country Israel as it, worth defending, even if I have some problems with it, even if I want it, there's a lot of things about it that I want to change, even though I'm against people who are governing it right now, even though I'm against a lot of its policies, even though I'm against the trends and the influence of ultra-Orthodox Judaism and far-right nationalism in politics, even though I'm against all of that, in fact, because I'm against all of that, because I care about Israel enough to be against all of that, like, in fact, I want to defend Israel against all her enemies, and the things that I just listed are her number one enemies,
Mhm.
right? Because I think Israel is worth defending, and I also, even though I'm against the settlements in the West Bank, and even though I'm against human rights violations of Israel, right? Even though I'm against the fight against secularism in Israel, even though I'm against all of those things, I think Israel deserves defending against all her enemies, and her number one enemy is far right nationalism and ultra Judaism as a whole, right? So, as a defender, as a person who wants Israel to progress and survive and be liberated from these far right elements, and I do believe Israel should be able to defend itself. Um, for that reason, I consider myself Zionist, right? So what was the second question?
Well, do you think this state where Jewish people can go to flee persecution, does it specifically have to be
It didn't have to be,
in
but now
between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea?
well, now it's not. It's too late to change that, right?
Okay,
Original,
so yeah.
wait. Originally, it didn't. Originally, it could have been a bit different place, and hindsight is 2020. I mean, here's the thing: it would have been better if it was a different place, but it would have been difficult to get support for a different place. So maybe, yes, it would have been better if it was a different place, but maybe it wouldn't have happened if it was a different place. And honestly, like the issue, I think now that I think about it more, is not necessarily with the place. It's more about the process in which it happened, right? Like if the Jews more, I mean, I do think that if the Jews, when they came to that area, if they came in to live with the Arabs, rather than segregate themselves from the Arabs. I think the environment at that time in that area would have led to a more friendly side by side sharing of the land. I think the direction the things went when people decided to segregate, here's the Jews, here the Arabs, let's take this is more Jewish land, Jewish land. I think if they went with, because at the beginning the hostility against them wasn't that much when they went there. In fact, they lived with each other back then without that much, like compared to all the everywhere else in the world. That seemed like a very good place for the Jews to go. And I think if they went there and if they bought land and they had less hostile ways of kicking people out of their homes and just be like, just keep on being neighbors with the Arabs instead of like, hey, these are the Jewish areas, and then eventually use their numbers as a way to make it this like, oh, this is now a Jewish land, maybe it would have become a closer Arab and Jews living side by side, and the process of them migrating there would just involve more and more voluntary transactions between Arabs and Jews, right? Again, this is very, very optimistic view of it, and it's very easy to say these things sitting many years after and judging it like that, but that's what I think. Okay, so I do also have an opinion about whether or not being a Zionist means if you should defend Israel as an ethno-state or not. And that would, if I start talking about that, we wouldn't get to any of the questions right now. Okay, we could get to that later.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.